All right. So I'm live here with Willie Cade. You can find him on his YouTube channel, Deer Facts, which is linked down below. He has been a regular on the channel and discussing a lot of stuff regarding John Deere and right to repair. And recently, it looks like the DOJ has decided to start going after John Deere. So thank you very much for taking the time to come on. And can you talk a little bit about what is in this very long complaint and what you think may come of it?
Yeah, interestingly enough, they had to ask permission to get extra length for this from the judge, which I thought was fascinating. Well, really, what this filing by the Department of Justice is kind of the next step in the Executive Order 14036 on competition that Biden issued July 9th, 2021. And specifically in that executive order, he called out in Section 4, he called out right to repair for agricultural equipment. So
yeah, and I noticed that in 2 years there hasn't been as much action on that as most of us would have liked. So
yeah, there hasn't. You're right. There hasn't been as much. And what I've tried to do is I've tried to get kind of the feeling of what does this particular filing by the Department of Justice, what does it mean for this? And there's a couple of things that it means. One, for sure, it means is that they've weighed in on and said, this is how we believe that the particular issue of John Deere and antitrust should be interpreted. If you will, they're putting their fingers on the scale of justice there. And they're saying, we think that the plaintiffs, farmers, have a real case here. And judge, we think we want to encourage you, because we can't tell you, obviously, we want to encourage you to continue the process and go forward with an actual case so that you can see the facts before you in your courtroom.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, jump.
I said the first interesting part was the fact that they made it 23 pages instead of 15, and they were also using the Kodak case from about 30 years ago here, where they're saying that like the Kodak went out of their way to make it so that service and parts for Kodak equipment was not interchangeable with other manufacturers' service and parts. The relevant market from the Kodak equipment owner's perspective is composed of only those companies that service Kodak machines. So like the fact that they referenced that is really cool, because I remember referencing that 2 years ago in the white paper that we wrote to the FTC when trying to say there has been a precedent for regulation against anti-repair practices.
Right. And kind of they also talked about the pushback that John Deere was trying to say is, oh, well, people know that we control all the repair, and so we didn't deceive them in that. And so we shouldn't be responsible for the antitrust element of this repair situation. And basically the Department of Justice is saying, when they cite Kodak, is no, you don't have to be deceptive, you don't have to do any of that, you are just plain controlling or the market, and therefore that's anti-competitive behavior.
Yeah, it says, in short, Deere claims that it has neither deceived nor surprised farmers with its long-standing repair restrictions.
Right. And
so that makes it okay?
Yeah. Well, that's what Deere's trying to claim. And that's kind of what Apple says, and kind of Apple's defense on this one. By the way, my high-tech friends in the associations are going, dude, Deere, you're blowing it for the rest of us, which is going to be an interesting process coming along, because if Deere falls on this one, Apple and many of the others who are trying to do this same kind of process aren't going to be far behind.
But the weird part is, Deere's response to people's criticism of the MOU is farmers already do have the ability to have their own tractors repaired by somebody else if they want. We're not limiting you. But then they say in this complaint, Deere claims it hasn't deceived farmers or surprised them with repair restrictions. So you're admitting to the existence of repair restrictions while simultaneously fighting right to repair legislation in all these different states by saying that there are no repair restrictions. So it's really one or the other. And it's like, do you have a different group of people that lie to the DOJ versus the group of people that lied to state legislatures? Did they mix up their stories that day, or like what? Very interesting.
And if you look at a previous filing, a joint filing between the plaintiff, the farmers, and John Deere, John Deere really kind of says exactly what you just said is, oh, no. We don't think we're acting illegal with our restrictions. But yet the MOU says we're going to give you, or you do now have access with the MOU to all this software. Oh, well, it's not quite ready yet. Maybe in 2023, maybe 2024, we'll fully implement the embedded files portion of the MOU. So it's
once the news forgets about it, once the repair advocates forget about it, once you're no longer in the paper, once you're not in the front page of Reddit, once nobody cares, then we'll release it, at which point we'll conveniently forget to do it. And
So by the way, I won't forget, Lewis. You
I
and
can't tell
me,
if that's
we're
a
not
face
going
of
to
doubt
forget.
or if his internet is frozen.
Say it again.
Oh shit! Both of our internets are frozen.
Yeah.
Internet. There we go.
You were frozen there, and I was too. Then, huh?
Yes.
Maybe it was John Deere is interrupting our internet.
Do you think that this will have any teeth? Do you think the DOJ is actually going to pursue this to some extent? Or do you think it'll be something like Biden asking the FTC to create rules and then spanking Harley Davidson on the wrist for smacking them on the wrist for a warranty violation and then going back to business as usual?
Well, first of all, I'm making it my mission that there's teeth to this. Number one. Number two is that really is an interesting question on to what extent the DOJ is going to weigh in. Is this going to be just a one-time filing by the DOJ and they're going to kind of keep their hands off on it? Or are they going to be sitting in depositions and making specific discovery requests? I've had a couple of different opinions on that. But frankly, one of the opinions that I value most says that DOJ may well be a third party in this suit, and they may well be sitting in and making comments and requests of the lawsuit. If the Department of Justice is actually going to be sitting in on depositions and making discovery requests, that's going to be a whole different ballgame.
That's a mess.
Well, it'll be great for the plaintiffs, because at that point you kind of can't fool people. Let's put it that way. Okay. So I'm very excited to kind of watch how it goes. There were a few errors that DOJ threw in there, like they assumed that an engine control unit was the only kind of electronic control unit, and I wanted to make sure that the person who signed the document for DOJ knew that error. And also too is John Deere is actually misleading people about the repair stuff, and we'll get we will get that ironed out at some point here, notwithstanding the reticence by the EPA to actually follow the Clean Air Act.
One thing I'm hoping is even if this DOJ case doesn't actually go anywhere, just it existing makes it easier to get things passed in state legislatures. Like once the FTC came out with a 59-page document going over how all the opposition lobbyist talking points were nonsense, it made it a lot easier to walk into any legislative body besides the governor of New York State and say, look, what we're saying is actually true. They're making it up. The FTC agrees with us, which is going to be very useful because I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, part of that MOU between John Deere and the Farm Association or Farm Bureau is that they stop lobbying in favor of right to repair legislation around the country, which means other people are going to have to pick up the slack there. And I'm already paying for lobbyists in 2 states for this, and probably more upcoming because the Farm Bureau is likely not going to be supporting it anymore. So it will be very helpful for us if we have limited lobbying resources to be able to say, by the way, everything that these farmers are telling you and your constituents are telling you, the DOJ agrees with us here. So you have agreement at the federal level, at the state level, and you also have agreement among your own constituents. So I'm hoping that makes it a little bit easier to move something past the finish line, even if the DOJ themselves doesn't actually move something past the finish line.
Yeah, I'm a little worried that legislators might go, oh, well, U.S. Department of Justice is on the case here. Time out. This case is going to take years, if not a decade, to get done. And we know that lots of farmers are currently being hurt. So we really need to press the legislators to get something done now.
Yeah, and don't do the thing where, like, everybody assumes they see a motorcycle crash and everybody assumes that somebody else called 911. Like the first thing they teach you when you take CPR AED is you have to say, you call 911, you get me a towel or whatever. Like you can't just assume that somebody else is going to do it, because then nothing actually gets done. And it's going to be on our job to say, okay, they have said that all these people are full of shit, but consumer protection tends to happen at the state level, not the federal level. So you should now do something about it and listen to your constituents.
Exactly right. And so that's going to be really my work for the next 6 months, is to make sure that any one of the 11 agricultural right to repair bills gets passed, any or all. I'm happy to have all. So, to that end, I've been going around about every other week, traveling somewhere to make that happen. Well, and what you see in my background is my trip from Montana. Beautiful place, by the way.
Really?
And the people in Montana get it. There's lots of people there who get it. And don't be afraid of the dealers and them pushing back against you. Yes, they'll give you pushback, but not too hard. And they can't push too hard now. I mean, that's one of the things. By the way, the other thing that's really interesting to me on this one is how much Deere left the dealers out to dry on this.
How so?
Giving all of the tools, if they actually do give the tools, it's going to eat into significant amounts of Deere dealer revenues on the repair side. They'll lose a bunch of staff, because staff who's well trained now can go out on their own and start their own businesses of repair.
Interesting.
So if I was the dealers, I would be very worried about this actually being implemented. And so there's going to be lots of pressures on it. And also too is it changes the dynamics between the dealers and Deere, and therefore changes the economics between them. I don't believe Deere has gone back to the dealers and said, well, we're giving up on this software, so we're not going to make you pay, as many dollars to do this, that, or the other thing that Deere does to dealers. So I'm really interested in and would love to hear from some dealers about what their thoughts on this are. Some of it we've heard. And yes, I know dealers are lockstep behind John Deere, but pretty soon they're going to realize that's not a good place to be.
Yeah. Well, hopefully sooner rather than later. thank you very much for taking the time to come on and explain all of this to me. And I hope to see some action into the future. And maybe I'm probably going to be traveling to at least Minnesota or Missouri sometime over the next 6 months. So maybe our paths will cross in a state legislative hearing at some point.
All right, buddy. Take care.
All right. Pleasure having you. Also, before I leave, for everybody who thinks I'm crazy, that's a cat. Willie Cade was covering the cat. So like when Willie's here, you can't see the cat. I'm not like petting myself. This is a cat. This is Blackberry. See? It's Blackberry the cat. She's good luck. She's going to make sure that all these bills pass. All right. See you in the next one.
Bye. Take care.
That went well.